Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. No, it's difficult not only after lunch, but then after a break after lunch to avoid the pool and come back into the final sessions of the conference, but we appreciate it. My name is Russ Kirscher, Senior Director of Product Marketing here at Veeam. I've officially been at every VeeamON we've had up until this point, and I get the pleasure of introducing these two guys from CEWA and giving them an opportunity to tell their story about how CEWA protects Microsoft 365 at scale with Veeam Data Cloud. Just want to take a minute and talk a little bit about Mike and Lee. Mike Kovacevic is the CIO at CEWA. A lot of C acronyms coming in this presentation, it seems like. Mike has 25 years of IT experience coming from vast industries and loves large-scale technology transformations, one of which we get to see from CEWA here in today's presentation. And we also have Lee Swift, the CISO from CEWA, long-lost cousins of Taylor Swift from across the pond. So these guys are from Perth, Australia, so exactly 12 hours ahead of time, their hometown. So it's actually tomorrow, 2 o'clock in the morning, back in their hometown. Lee has been with CEWA for 16 years. He said he's basically worn about every hat from their IT department at some point. And one story I heard about Lee that I really love and appreciate is when he was promoted to CISO, he had the opportunity to get a nice cushy office, a door that shuts and can get away from everyone. And he turned it down because he wanted to be in the trenches right next to his team, fighting fires and driving the business. So also want to congratulate these guys that they won the Executive Team of the Year award, and will be receiving that award later on tonight at the celebration at the end of the event. So please join me in welcoming Mike and Lee up to the stage.
Thank you, Russ.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russ.
All right. Well, thank you for choosing our session. It's great to be in San Diego. It's great to be part of this amazing event. So Lee is the handsome one. I'm not the smart one. So I'm going to walk you through what CEWA is about, where Veeam fits in the scheme of things. I'm going to talk about our business transformation and all the projects that sort of got us to this stage. Lee will focus on some of the technical aspects. So we'll sort of cover both. Anything you want to kick off with?
No, I think we can go. Like, obviously, we're here to talk about the main project, Veeam, but it's really interesting to know how we got there. The story needs to be told, and I think that's where we're about to kick off. So,
cool. All right. So, why would you want to hear our story? I guess Veeam. We've been told throughout all the sessions, Veeam is more, and I want to show you our version of what that more is. You will have your own. So Veeam is more something to you in your organization. So for us, we're a system of 162 Catholic primary and secondary schools covering all of Western Australia. Within our schools, there's roughly 13,000 staff, almost 50-50, teaching, non-teaching, and 80,000 students. And you can see some of the numbers there. So it's a pretty significant size organization. In terms of context, CEWA brings in $1.4 billion in revenue. Now that's Australian dollars. What's that? 150K US
yeah.
at the moment. Probably closer to sort of 800 million. And it is a not-for-profit organization too. So it's funded through a mix of state and federal government funding, and parent fees as well. In terms of where it fits in the scheme of things, so roughly one in 6 families choose one of our schools. The government system is the largest by far, so they're about 5 times our size. Catholic schools are private schools. They do introduce the Catholic aspects of teaching. And then there is also a third vertical in there. It's fully independent schools. Catholic schools are generally chosen for the quality of education and also accessibility. So our fees are not very high. They're almost not quite on par with public schools, but they're not much more expensive, so they're quite accessible. And we do cover regions where I think in 7 instances we are the only school available You got to appreciate Western Australia. There are very unpopulated or sparsely populated areas where if we didn't have a school there, those kids would have nowhere to go.
Yeah, when you look at that context, we have the most remote schools in the country. You talk about Western Australia, so not quite half of Australia, but most of it is desert. Some of these schools, or I've visited all our schools, but when we talk about those remote schools, it's literally flying in on a 2 or 4 seater plane and landing on a dirt runway, and if it rains too hard, you stay at the school because you can't take off in the plane.
Okay, so in terms of what does our technology stack look like? It is not highly sophisticated, but our schools and educators, they are innovators too. They are preparing our students for a very uncertain future where technology is changing at a rapid pace, and in many cases we can't even picture what that world is going to look like. So our technology has to meet the needs of our staff, teaching and non-teaching, students, and then school leaders, but also parents, so in terms of communications with parents. And how that problem was solved up until sort of 2016 is every school had its own technology stack. So in there you'd have your student information system, your maybe CRM, you would have your tuck shop payment systems or uniform shop payment system, your devices, etc., etc.
Also, I guess one of the good points there is all of those schools would run independent versions of Office 365 or Google Apps for Education, and that would be managed by the school themselves, completely separate to what we ran.
Yeah. So in a commercial sort of commercially focused organization, you would think, well, you're not leveraging economies of scale that you may be able to tap into if you standardize across all of your schools. But for a Catholic system, there's also an equity component. So some schools, just because of where they're located, have access to more funds and therefore could afford better technology, but some schools couldn't. And so there was this inequity that wasn't planned, baked into this setup. So we saw an opportunity to level the playing field, to actually elevate all of our schools and provide best-in-class technology. This is what the world looked like before. We thought we can do something better. And that would be 4 schools. Imagine 162. Imagine a staff member, and this happens a lot. As a teacher, you move from school A to school B, you have to relearn all the technology. You've lost access to your data from the previous school. You most likely will get a new username and password that you now need to remember. And then there are staff who work in several schools at the same time. So imagine the number of username passwords that they had.
We look at it from my point of view is it's very hard to secure anything if I have no visibility or no control. So we've got these users that have multiple places where they store data, multiple accounts. We're relying on those schools to do those accounts have MFA? Do they not have MFA? That uncertainty it's not. You can't run a business like that. So something needed to change, and I guess that's where we're going to show you the journey.
Yep. All right. So we thought we could do better, and we had a pretty well sketched out plan, but plans only take you so far. So I'll share with you a little bit what that journey looked like for us. It started in October 2016, and the first thing we knew was needed was to create a single identity so that regardless of which school you attend or are a staff member at, you had an @cewa.edu.au address. How many domains did we have before we started this?
So every school had at least one domain. For some reason, some had multiple. We also had multiple at the office as well. So we're talking, I think it was 172 domains total. So in the space of, it was under a year, I think it was a space of about 9 months, we consolidated all that down to the single identity, CEWA. We'll put our email addresses up later, but so at CEWA is what we went with. And that's enabled us to then immediately do the next step, which was, great, so if you're moving school to school, it means, now we have a single identity, you can have a single Wi-Fi at all schools. So when you go to the school, you can instantly connect. Obviously, you'll be put on a guest VLAN, but at the same time, you're not having to go and ask. You're a member of staff. We're one community. You should be able to move from school to school. Yeah, thank you, Mike. So Mike's gone to the next section, which once that is done, once we have that identity, then it's, hey, let's move into a single Office 365 tenant. Now that meant that was my team. So we, within, it was probably roughly the same time, about 10 months, we consolidated 155, I think it was at the time, Office 365, all Google tenants down into the single tenant that we have today. Later on, when I talk about the Veeam Data Cloud and how we got there, so this was when we started to talk to Veeam initially about how are we going to secure that data, how are we going to protect that data. And when we look at the numbers today, you know how many staff and students we have, it's over 90,000. We also have over a petabyte of data. So no matter what we were looking at, the scale is very big.
So at this point, all our staff and all our students have an @cewa.edu.au identity, and there's a single Office 365 tenancy, meaning there's now increased opportunity to start sharing and collaborating across our schools. We were a very early adopter of Microsoft Teams as well, and that did take off really well because it brought our schools together.
Yeah, so we were the largest Microsoft Teams users in the Southern Hemisphere until COVID happened and everyone else joined the bandwagon. I like to tell the story. I rolled Microsoft Teams out personally to those 90,000 people, and the only controls I had were 5 sliders, none of this fancy Teams admin center that people have these days. The opportunities we had back then, being early adopters, meant that we were also, and still are today, connected with the dev team for Microsoft Teams. So we still do fortnightly checkups with the devs from Microsoft Teams for Education to ensure that what we need is what they're building moving forward.
Yep. All right, so the first 2 projects, Identity, Office 365, we did really well. We moved super fast, and we were successsul. And then things got a little bit tougher. So the complexity of our projects just really increased significantly. Next for us was a single student information system, and we chose Microsoft Dynamics 365 for this purpose. We also chose the Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations for the financial management of our schools. The problem, though, is that there is no Dynamics 365 for education. We had to build it. Another challenge is that at the time, the CRM wasn't talking to the finance and operations piece. We needed to get those 2 to integrate. So just, I guess, orders of magnitude more complex than what we've done to date. We needed to build something, we needed to roll it out. And if you thought that migrating a quintillion mailboxes and SharePoint sites was tough, imagine migrating 162 bespoke student information system databases to a single uniform one. We needed all sorts of data migration routines and mappings, and it was really complex. And just so you don't think we're showing off, it was hard, and we got it wrong on our first attempt. The partner, I believe, severely underestimated the complexity of what we were undertaking, and we had to take a step back and reset. And I will say, hand on heart, that we were really at risk of having the whole thing cancelled because for a not-for-profit organisation that traditionally didn't centralise a lot of their IT, this was a big investment that started looking like it was going to go south. So it took a lot of advocacy. And a part of why we're sharing this story with you is if you are running a long-running project, a complex project, you will have moments like this. So be prepared also with a really strong narrative as to why you're doing this, why that reason doesn't go away when things start going in the wrong direction, and also have a plan on how to reset. For us, it meant me making some probably career-limiting statements in terms of this partner who are very influential in the industry, and me saying we're going to terminate the contract and start again.
Yeah, I think the theme of Veeam, we're talking about data resilience, we're talking about cyber resilience in the last panel. I also talk about personal resilience. If you're going through a project like this, whether it's something like this or implementing something even like Veeam, sometimes you don't get it right, or you aren't able to get it across the line at the time. That's where the personal resilience comes in as well. If you know you're right, you need to take stock, reset, and try again.
Yep, absolutely. So things started going well again for us, and that little line that just popped up where it says primary. So we started rolling out to primary schools first. There's 120 of them. And it's impossible for a small team to just do a big bang approach where you just grab 120 different databases and you plonk them into Dynamics. So we separated schools into waves of 5, and there would be 5 schools migrated every fortnight, which we were told would absolutely fail, and no partner wanted to touch this project. So we were on our own, and we went out to market and hired really smart people to make this happen.
I was already smart and already hired, just to confirm.
All right, so that was going pretty well, and we felt good about ourselves. And then COVID-19 happened, and when I wanted to go faster than 5 schools a fortnight, I challenged my team and I said, "Why do we have to visit our schools to do this? Can't we do it remotely?" And I was told, "Never. That'll never happen. You cannot do this remotely." Well, we were proven otherwise. When COVID happened and schools were shut down and kids were sent home and staff were sent home, and we thought, well, we can't sit on our hands. We don't know how long these lockdowns are going to last. So let's continue. And we did. And we actually picked up pace during this stage. Probably worth calling out at this point, boy, were we glad that we were already in a single tenancy and teams fully rolled out, because our schools just continued. Yes, remote, yeah. So mum and dad had to do all the child minding, and they had to put up with annoying kids being there all day and still trying to do their jobs. But we could continue teaching. Not so with some of the other schools. So.
Yeah, so one of the things my team consulted with, we actually had the universities in our state come to us, and then some of them nationally, to talk about how we were still able to operate with our international students. And in Australia, with the international students, a lot of ours come from Asia, but I guess they come from anywhere. There is a minimum requirement of classes they have to attend. If they don't attend, they can't graduate. Now that is for K-12, but university is similar. So we didn't have a problem. Any kind of issues that we came across, because we were already had built a platform and had everyone on it, it was pretty smooth. So we consulted with the universities on how they could operationally work better to get the same outcome. But for us, it was just business as usual.
Absolutely. So we continued rolling out to our secondary schools, infinitely more complex, but we got that over the line. Side note, probably interesting and maybe a little bit of showing off. So the piece that we built in Dynamics 365, we actually sold the intellectual property rights to that bit of software to a private entity, who then continued to develop it and are looking to on-sell to other schools. So we're quite proud of what we've done, with a team that's essentially 40 full-time employees. At the time, quite a few contractors, but a really small team. And I remind you again, 14,000 staff and 80,000 students. So we are proud of what we do, but none of this happens without a really strong partner network, without an amazing set of tools. And you may be sitting here wondering, well, where's the Veeam part? When's that going to come in? We're going to get to it. And what I will share with you, that being at this event, I have reevaluated this map. And I have thought, had I had access to what Veeam offers today, this would have been a lot easier. So we had to do it the hard way. This gets it significantly easier for anyone else going through the same process. Okay, and then we thought, well, we weren't busy enough, so we needed to standardize our internet access for all of our schools. A massive amount of work, from physically installing fiber to the premise, connections to then rolling out and setting up a fully managed SD-WAN. That project was successful again. Then we decided to migrate all of our school workloads to Azure. So about 1,200 VMs, and many of our schools are now fully serverless, meaning less work for really busy teachers. Schools who do have their own IT teams, they are holding onto some equipment, and we're working through with them to see what still makes sense to remain at schools and what makes sense to migrate. And then maybe over to you.
This one is mine. We have I spent last year touring the country talking about it, but we had built an automation, an AI, we call her Security Sarah. She does all our level 1 security work. So I could talk about, that's a whole separate topic, I could talk about it, but basically she closes 99% of our security incidents that come through automatically. If you want to have a beer later and talk about it, I could tell you about how we built her so well when she did her job properly and saved one of our executives. We spent the first 15 minutes working out, how the hell did this work? And they were, oh wait, we built this, that's right. Because it actually works so well. one of the real kickers for that is we didn't set out to build this. We set out to say, hey, we have a really small team. We need to automate this because there's no way that we can look at, for example, I think it was in the slowest week of the year for education, we still had 8,500 high or critical alerts in that 1 week. And that's with no students or staff, but that's still how many were coming through. Impossible for a team. And when I talk about a team right now in security for CEWA, there's myself, an engineer, an analyst, our privacy and information governance, and a person that looks after our requests for information. That's it. So to do that, we needed, we use partners for external SOC, but our team needed something to do. So do you want to go one more?
Yep.
Oh, okay, you do this and I'll go with last.
Yeah, so probably not a major one, but standardizing on our telephony system across schools, again, 160 times. But by this stage, we're pretty good at doing things at scale. Probably just before we jump to the next one, worth calling out that you can see from that CEWA 365 project back in 2017, we knew already then that we needed data resiliency. We needed a solution in that space, and we kind of wore that risk throughout, because we were just a little bit busy, I guess.
Yeah, and if you click the next one, you'll see the little line that goes across the bottom says security. So it's me. We talked about the smart people or good looking. I don't know how we went. This is where we need to really focus on how we were secure. So you know throughout this story, and yes, we have Veeam now. Why didn't we do Veeam earlier? We tried, and you know I talked about it on stage before. In the last session, sometimes you just can't get it across. When I talk about Catholic education, we're non-for-profit, we're education. There's no way for us to make more revenue outside of getting more kids. So when we go and ask for funds to buy something new, that has to be justified against not just, hey, what's the best ROI or what's that for the business? It's literally measured against, if we give you this money, we're not hiring another teacher, we're not hiring 3 education assistants. Is what we're doing worth that? And sometimes it takes a while to really stretch that story out. I'll talk a little bit more when we get to some other slides, but just keep that in your mind.
All right, so that's our journey. Now, this is way too small to read, and don't worry too much about it. But what I do want to position is where Veeam currently fits in for us is that second project, Office 365. You may sit back and think, well, it's Office 365, what does it matter? Unlike a bank or an insurance organization where they're highly transactional and their systems are transactional, for us it's not. It's about content, it's about exchange of information. So Office 365 genuinely carries our business. It is our go-to app. And you know, to live with the level of risk exposure that we had was just, it became unacceptable. And so late last year, we started significantly escalating the need to engage a partner like Veeam to solve that challenge for us. And over to you, Lee.
Right.
Hand you the clicker.
I'll give the clicker, thank you. All right, so our journey with Veeam Data Cloud. Let's go, because we're going to talk about some of the things we've talked about. Justification and business case for the M365 protection. So literally what we're talking about. We had tried for years previous, right? One of the things that came across is, but what are we doing now? Why haven't, we haven't had an issue yet, what are you doing? One of the undercurrents of that question coming back was when we initially went Office 365, obviously there was a lot of Microsoft involvement in that decision and a partnership to move forward. Look, there was some communication to our executive, and I'm not saying it was directly from Microsoft, but the communication was, you don't need to worry about anything anymore. Once you put it in Microsoft 365, it's in the cloud, it's looked after. You just don't worry about it. So we continually had that challenge of going against them and saying, why do we need something like Veeam? Why do we need data protection? Because we've got Microsoft, we're fine. And we had that conversation over and over, and it came down to, well, have you had to restore something? And yes, we had retention on, so I understand retention is not backup, but in the use cases that we had been able to recover some of the information. We had all the information that was required. So that actually hurt us. It would have been better if I couldn't recover anything, because then I would have had a perfect business case. What has been great was now, obviously that's not Microsoft's story, and they like to explicitly say, hey, we have a product called Office 365 Backup, you should buy this. Data's not our problem, that's your data. Once that story happened, it really helped cement that, these guys were right. When they were coming to us saying we need to protect our data, we do need to protect it. When we went out to market and we had a look, what should we use? Obviously, Microsoft had their product, and we always look at Microsoft first. We have such a big investment, and I'm not saying no one's saying the word terrible. Well, maybe I said the word, but it did not suit our business at all. How it works and the way it backs up compared to Veeam, it's immature, and that's why once we got that down, we're able to take the Veeam offering to exec and say, look, this is what we need, this is why, and there's nothing else you can stand behind it. Now, the other thing we did to try and soften the blow, I've already talked about how big we are. We're 90,000 plus. It's been on the screen. I've said it before, we had over a petabyte of data. When you go out and look at vendors, whether Veeam or anyone else, that's a significant number, no matter which way you push it. If you license from users, it's a lot of users. You license from data, that's a lot of data. And you think about how quickly we grew that data, we're only growing more as we go. So when we looked at that, it really was, we need to find a partner that wanted to work with us for the right reason. I talked before about we can't generate revenue out of nowhere. The other thing is, generating revenue isn't what we do. Like, we're not an IT company. We're not here to make money. We're here to deliver quality Catholic education to the students that we serve. That's the motto. So that is what I had to keep in mind the whole way along. So that's where we are. So data retention and regulatory requirements. So I've had a conversation with a few people around this. One of the reasons that we came along with Veeam Data Cloud was specifically we have some unique retention requirements. Part of in Australia, they're obviously as an independent company, we don't work for the government. Catholic education is private. So when we look at that, we fall under Australia's Privacy Act. So we have to follow that to the T. That's fine. There are a few other regulations we have to do, but then there's also other things that pop up. And one of it, there was a Royal Commission that was included, and in that, there's certain types of information we now need to keep for 99 years. 99 years is a long time. If we go back, I've actually been with the team that we've recovered paper documents from the 20s and 30s when we've had to submit them. We don't have any paper documents anymore. Everything is in the cloud. So we needed a partner that would assist us with that. And like I said, I'm not saying we need to keep the petabyte of data for 99 years, but there are certain data types in there we do. So that was something that was really important to us, to make sure that whoever we partnered with, whoever we went with, was able to take us on that journey and understand our requirements. Veeam security and access control. This is kind of sets Veeam apart from everyone else as well. Not only because, if you're all Veeam, you're all here, so you're all Veeam users, you understand what I'm talking about. I'll jump through the access control part for a second. You see we're 162 schools. At least 50 of those schools are big secondary colleges or K-12 colleges. They'll have IT staff. They'll have IT managers that are on the ground, right? So one of the themes and one of the things we try to achieve at Catholic Education is subsidiarity. A decision should be made at the lowest point where it's appropriate to be made. Also, the power should be delivered to that person as well. So for us, that means that Veeam was a way that we could offer centralized backup that covered everybody. Centralized data protection that covers everybody, but still give the ability that if someone wanted to restore from a backup at a school and they have the appropriate levels to do that, we can offer that. We can go down to that level. When we talk about just general Veeam security, they showed on the screen a few times the fact that a lot of the stuff can connect to SAML. That's a no-brainer for us. We have to connect with our Azure IDP. The reason being is we run all kind of admin access like this, we run through privileged identity management. So at any time, like for example, I was in a meeting with some of the Veeam guys earlier yesterday, and I wanted to show them where we are on our Veeam Data Cloud, and I logged in and I forgot to activate, so I just got a blank screen saying you don't have access. So I have to go activate, but as Russ said, we're 12 hours ahead. So I had to call my engineer, say, look, yeah, I know it's 3 a.m. Yeah, are you watching me on the live stream? It's really good. Also, can you approve my PIM so I can actually show the guys here? So we have that built in. Veeam was one of the only people who were able to deliver that straight away. And what takes us even further is, I'll talk about it a little bit in a second, but the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, the body that looks after cybersecurity in Australia from the government's point of view, they put out a a framework, right? And don't get me wrong, all of these connect up to NIST or ISO 27001, but Essential 8 is very important for Australian companies. The government has to follow it. It's recommended for everybody. What Veeam have done is they delivered a white paper to say, hey, if you want to meet the Essential 8 requirements for, it's literally called backup in the Essential 8, here's how you can do it with Veeam. So when we had when we set up Veeam, we were, from the word go, able to be at the highest maturity level in the bracket of backup immediately because they delivered the white paper, we're setting up from scratch and we were able to achieve that. Not any other company can give you that kind of safety or ability to sleep at night because you know that you're set up perfect from the word go. All right, and this is something that I actually jumped on thanks to Steve, our account executive, I actually jumped on the Veeam all hands technical sales crew call to tell them you need to sell differently because no one told me how easy it was to onboard to Veeam Data Cloud. We chose Veeam Data Cloud for all of these other reasons. What I think a huge point is we signed on, we said, great. We've got a petabyte of data, 90,000 users. It's going to take a long time to back up initially because it's APIs. We already knew that. That's fine. We said, great, we need to kick off this now in the school holidays over Christmas to make sure that, we've got a lot of time to run it. Oh, sounds good. Well, that's great. So what we need to do, okay, so traditionally, and Mike has showed you that list of projects that we run through, you get your project management office, we get our project officer, get project manager, we get the engineering teams, we get everyone else to make sure that there's backups, we put in checkpoints, you have there's a lot of blah, blah, blah. But with Veeam, we had a single call, and within 40 minutes, we were backing everything up. And then by 48 hours, we had all the Essential 8 security and access control set up. So in 48 hours with no PMs, no project, no nothing, we were running with Veeam, everything being backed. All the VIP users had completed their backup and we had started backing up the rest of the 90,000. That's an insane way, and something I think is really undersold, that the business, we're now protecting that data. Within 40 minutes, we had started doing that. That's a 40-minute call that the guys were on, 7 a.m. one day. So I think that's something that's really undersold, but is really, really important of why a solution like Veeam works across all the different areas. All right, before I go on, is there anything else you wanted to add, Mike?
No, I'll be talking about people and how that part of the conversation went, so when we're ready.
All right, great. All right, so I've ran it through those kind of 4 steps on the, how we chose it, but why we chose it. So for us, Veeam understanding the importance of protecting Microsoft 365 data. A lot of people just want to sell you that they can protect it. The way Veeam has interacted with us, and we go back to, we talked about 2017 is when we migrated to that single tenant. We've been in conversation with Veeam and trying to make something happen to ensure that our sensitive and student information has been protected since then. Now, there's a lot of different reasons why we weren't able to make that happen, but we have made it happen now. And throughout the whole way, Veeam supported us on that journey. Right now as well, so, I've been a CISO at Catholic Education Western Australia, but I also sit on the technical working group for Catholic Network Australia, because we, as a country, get together and do deals. So for example, our Microsoft licensing, we negotiate that as a country rather than a state or a diocese or a school. Same with that, we talked about our SD-WAN project, we negotiate that with the telco providers as a country, not as different versions. Veeam has always come to the table. We said, hey, this is important to us, but if it's important to Western Australia, we know that's going to be important to the rest of the country. Hey, can you guys come and present? I'm not saying every single state needs to use Veeam, but every single state needs to understand the importance of backing it up, and the willingness and the ability to turn up and show the rest of the country, hey, this is what you can achieve. But then also work with, throw in add-ons. So we actually had a Coveware came in to present, hey, have you thought about ransomware? This is what it looks like, and it's been fantastic. I talk about aligning with Australia's Essential 8 security framework. I know I've already spoken about that, but it's something really, really important for us. Obviously, if you're not in Australia, not a huge deal for you, but Veeam offer the same for NIST and the other requirements that you may have, whether it's government or not. I think it's what I really wanted to highlight. The fact is, Australia, we're a very physically big country. We only have 25 million people, but Veeam put the time in to ensure that, hey, if you go down here, this is how you can meet those requirements. That's a pretty solid investment from a company that we are footprint-wise quite small. So I think it's really good, and it really shows that the partnership they have with the customers they work with. Sure, data safety and compliance. I talked about compliance, where we need to go. Like that 99 years, we just had a meeting with Veeam where we talked about other problems that we have and how we can kind of solve that. What's interesting to me is we talk about data, specifically data security and safety, but right now my teams back in Perth, my security team and the operations team that I have a close relationship with, both working on two separate items to make sure we have our Entra logs in immutable storage so we can look at that later. And hey, have we got Entra ID backed up, and how are we doing this? And we come down to the expo, and the Veeam Data Cloud has the button. You just press it, hey, we can back everything up and go there. So the fact that they already have solutions for things that we're trying to do now, for me, I just think it shows that it's not just about, hey, we have a backup solution or data protection solution or whatever it is. They're thinking for the next step. And for us, that's really important, because many of the things we do, we are in the education space, and because we're a bit more flexible than sort of highly regulated bodies, we are usually pushing the edge for the next thing, right? We're small, but we're fast, we're agile, and we try to achieve more. And that really kind of incorporates that last piece where, look, Veeam really recognized our challenges, but also education. If I look around, if you meet many people here, there's not many people from different education parts that are here at VeeamON. That's not unusual for any technical conference. Education as a whole kind of, it's not left to the side, but it's definitely not one of the front runners. It's really important for us that whoever we partner with, so partnering with Veeam, they understand that yes, we're different. Yes, we may, if you charge licenses by people or by data, we're going to be different. We're going to have a huge amount of people. We're going to have a huge amount of data, but we also don't have a huge amount of money because I don't make that. So what can we do to benefit both of us to get an outcome that's successful? All of that on top of making sure that when we put things on the table to say, hey, you've got this, but have you thought about this? Veeam is the conversation back and forth. All of those kind of things together gives us that sense of security moving forward. And I think that's one of the key things. Mike?
Thank you, Lee. So you can see now, if you reflect back to our journey and the reasons why we started all of this, all of our students and all of our schools now have the same quality of data resilience that they never could afford before. Some could, but most couldn't. And so we got there with Veeam. What I do want to share with you is we are lovable chaps. We're easy to work with generally, but we set the bar really high. And you don't get to be successful with large transformations by always being a super nice guy and sort of not calling out things when they don't go well. So we've done plenty of that, and a lot of our partners initially dreaded talking to us. It's just the nature of the beast. But Veeam kind of put up with us and worked through the whole thing to really understand where we were, understand the different components, and they absolutely came up with the goods. At no point did any of the products feel like they needed to be shoehorned in. They just fit really well. So I do thank Veeam for that. And then just being there every step of the way. So as Lee said, we knew we needed this solution back in 2017. We were probably in a hybrid state that didn't lend itself well to the product suite. The product suite itself within Veeam probably needed to evolve, but we got there in the end, and we really are satisfied with where we are at the moment. Again, reflecting back on our journey, the next steps for us to solve will be Dynamics 365, will be our data stack, and potentially the remainder of our Azure footprint as well. So there's a lot more to come, but Veeam has been a key component and a significant one certainly for the end of last year and this year, and we look forward to working with Veeam on our future projects.
Yeah, and just to really rock that home, specifically we're talking about things that are very high on our radar of what we need to do as next steps. When Mike said some people dread to deal with us, what's the old saying? You know, hire hard, manage easy kind of thing when you talk about staff members. We're kind of a little bit like that with partners. It's not about being hard, but it's about ensuring that if we're going to let you in, we need you to be a partner with us. You know, we need you to come on the journey. We'll be completely transparent and open with you, and we need that back and forth. And Veeam has more than come to the table and played that partner part with us in a fantastic way. All right, I think we're just on time. So last slide here, these are our email addresses. So if you wanted to get in touch with Mike or I or talk about anything that you've seen today and you don't see us downstairs for beers later, that's how you can contact us.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you everyone.